everyone, welcome back to the Change Your Mind podcast, where we explore personal development, spirituality, and science. I'm your host, Chris Ashley. I am really excited for my guest today. I have a psychotherapist who has come up with some really interesting techniques to help his clients, and I think we're all going to get a lot out of this conversation. I'm a big fan of therapy. I think everyone could use therapy at certain points in their life, so I'm excited for where the conversation goes. First, couple quick announcements. As always, head over to the links in the show notes. You're going to find a lot there. You'll find ways to connect with my lovely guest. You'll find ways to connect with me. You'll find ways to buy my book. It's called Change Your Mind to Change Your Reality. It was endorsed by Michael Beckwith, Bob Doyle, Marcy Shimoff, all of whom were on The Secret. It was endorsed by John Gray, who wrote Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, so go check it out. You'll find ways to sponsor the podcast. And as always, this podcast is part of the Los Angeles Tribune Podcast Network. We are doing amazing things in the personal development realm. We have live events pretty much every month. All the other podcasts are amazing. Just come be a part of what we're doing. We're changing the world, and it's a pretty epic ride. What if the one thing keeping you stuck is the way you think? Welcome to Change Your Mind with Chris Ashley, the podcast where science meets spirituality and mindset becomes your most powerful tool for transformation. I'm Chris Ashley, author of Change Your Mind to Change Your Reality, trainer, speaker, and lifelong seeker. For years, I battled trauma, depression, anger, chronic illness, low self-worth, and the weight of old stories. Until I discovered how to rewire my mind, reconnect with my divine nature, and consciously create a new reality from the inside out. This show is here to help you do the same. Each week, we explore the intersection of personal development, spirituality, and science, diving into topics like healing, emotional mastery, entrepreneurship, resilience, and the quantum nature of reality. You'll hear powerful stories, gain practical tools, and real conversations that will help you change your perspective, get unshakable confidence, and live the vision your soul has always known is possible. Whether you're navigating a major life shift, building your dream business, or seeking deep healing and alignment, you're in the right place. So if you're ready to break through, take back your power, and create a life on your terms, this is your moment. Let's break free from the patterns that hold us back, awaken to who we truly are, and rise. Your transformation starts now. All right, so with me today, I have Dr. Lloyd Glauberman. Did I pronounce your name correctly? I didn't even ask you.
Lloyd Glauberman. That's
amazing. Okay, look at that. So Dr. Lloyd is a Manhattan psychotherapist focusing on stress management and behavior change, anxiety, and mood disorders. His approach is centered around lifestyle management through an understanding of how timing and rhythm affect our core behavioral ecosystem, that is eating, moving, and sleeping. His newest project, the Lifestyle Intelligence app, is a cutting-edge vehicle that takes a unique psychoeducational approach to relearning, rebuilding, and maintaining harmony among these three core elements in order to catalyze positive change. Previously, Dr. Glauberman introduced Hypno-Peripheral Processing, or HPP, an audio technology that combines stress management with behavioral change. His unique hypno-storytelling approach allows individuals to effortlessly enter and utilize the hypnotic state, the psychological space between waking and sleeping, which is our most receptive state. I'm excited by that bio. Welcome. I'm so happy you're here.
I appreciate being here, and thank you for that wonderful introduction.
Absolutely. So I always start my shows off the same way, and that is by asking my guests, what is your origin story? So what is it that made you want to be a psychotherapist to begin with? And then two-part, what made you develop your own approaches?
That's interesting. My initial escapade into what I'm going to do when I got older was initially focused on being a drummer in a rock and roll band.
Love it.
But like most of us who were in that business, that didn't work out. And during that period of time, I had just graduated college, and I got a job working as a psychiatric attendant at the Massachusetts Mental Health Center. I was walking down the street, I saw the building, I walked in, I asked whether there was anybody who I could speak to about whether there are any jobs available. I walked to a door, spoke to a woman. I said, "Are there any jobs available?" And she said, "When can you start?"
Wow.
Seriously, that
It was meant
actually
to be.
I said, "What? Excuse me, but you don't even know my name." She says, "We need people here." Okay, so I
Wow.
got this job, and it turned out to be a first-class institution with individuals from Harvard Medical School doing their internships and residencies there. So it was a high-end mental hospital. While I was there, I got some good feedback. Hey, you might be pretty good in this business, something I never thought about up until then.
Wow.
From that moment in time, I decided, well, my music career was going nowhere, so let me focus on this. I was getting married at the time, right out of college, and my wife said, okay, let's get you into graduate school. That happened, and eventually I went through Syracuse University, where I got my doctorate. Doing something a little bit different than traditional psychotherapy, I worked with police officers, teaching them family crisis intervention techniques, which kind of got me into a really hands-on kind of role in terms of what's really important in terms of the business. From there, I graduated, eventually got my license, then started doing psychotherapy, got involved then paying attention to hypnotic technology, which obviously anybody in the business is always interested in. And while I was in a workshop, I came across a most unusual hypnotic induction technique. It involved two hypnotists working simultaneously with one subject. So you had a person sitting in a chair, and you had one hypnotist on one side, one on the other, and they both began speaking simultaneously to the subject.
Were they saying the same thing or different things?
No, completely different things. Two completely different trains of thought, parallel in nature, but listening to it, they're very different in the way things were phrased and said. Okay? And I'm listening to this, trying to figure out what's going on, while simultaneously finding myself drifting into a very strange altered state of hypnotic consciousness while I'm trying to process what's going on. At that moment in time, I said to myself, now this is an interesting technique. From there, I said, maybe this could be done on audio in a way that might be useful for people, because two hypnotists working with one subject is not exactly practical in nature, right? It's just not going to happen. But maybe some kind of technological aspect of that could be. So from there, I began figuring out what would be the best way to do that. And I came across the idea of using mythologically based stories. You know, Joseph Campbell, myth of the hero kinds of stuff. People with a problem go out into the world, meet a magical character, and that magical character begins to weave hypnotic stuff going. But from that initial story, two stories begin simultaneously, a different story in each ear. Now, anybody I've ever talked to about this, which is a lot of people, everybody says the same thing. How can you follow everything, right? The answer is, I don't want you to follow it. I want your conscious mind drifting away, because when your conscious mind is out of the way, the best of you is now available. Because we all know when we listen to things, we always rationalize, justify, change, shift. But if you don't know exactly what you're hearing, because the part of you that's hearing is not conscious, interesting things can happen, which began to happen as I began to explore how to go about using this process.
Okay, that's really cool. It makes me think of like binaural beats, but like a story version of that.
During that time, that was the same time when binaural beats began to be part of the culture in terms of relaxing people and changing people. I remember a friend of mine wrote one of the books about all of that stuff. Michael Hutchinson, I forget exactly what the name of one of his books are, but he cataloged all of the interesting strategies and technologies that were occurring during that period, which was basically late 1970s into the early 80s when stuff like that began to start taking hold in the culture. Anyway, this began to be useful. And this is where I found out, which I did not expect because I didn't know, that this was able to get people into what you mentioned before, the state between waking and sleep, the hypnagogic state. It's a magical place. It is an absolutely magical place.
Okay. I had like no idea what we were going to talk about today, and this is so cool. So I want to talk about that state and like the magic that can happen and everything, but what made you want to use mythological stories? That's such a cool choice.
Fundamentally, we are stories. That's who we are. Our identity is built around our story, which begins approximately at 4 years old when we're going to nursery school and we come back and we tell mom and dad, or they ask us, what did you do today? And you begin to catalog and talk about all the things that you did that day, your story that day. That model gets expanded, but ultimately when we think about who we are, it's our story. Stories are fundamental to our identity. Therefore, telling people stories feeds right into who we are neurologically, psychologically, biologically. We are the story. So putting messages within the context of this interesting story makes it perfect for people to listen to. Hence the use of fairy tales and Joseph Campbell's Myth of the Hero stuff. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. Person with a problem goes out into the world, meets somebody who helps them get through this, whatever they're struggling with. That stories are, we go to movies, we love the storyline. How much of our lives are stories? It dominates everything. Listen to the news every day, we hear the stories of the day, right? It's all about stories. That's what we're about.
The whole Joseph Campbell thing makes me think. I got my undergrad and graduate in creative writing.
Oh, wow, okay.
And yeah, I'm a writer, but they told us I can't remember the exact number, but there's only been like 23 stories ever created. And it's like every story is like a version of that. Yeah.
23 themes?
Yeah, like the Joseph Campbell, like you were just saying, like, person loses their father and goes on a quest or, whatever. As you know, like Star Wars was based on all that too. Okay, so I know a lot about like, hypnosis and getting put into that like theta brainwave state between sleep and wake. And there's a lot you can do there. And I'm trying to imagine like, I'm assuming you want people to make some kind of change or some kind of like become aware of something in that state. Are they able to do that with these stories kind of like in their ears? Like that's what I'm like confused about.
The answer is yes.
Okay.
Let me give you an example from early on. That individual who I mentioned before, who had written a whole bunch of books, he did workshops with all of these kinds of technologies, mine and a whole bunch of other things. And he invited me to one of them so I could see what he was doing and how he was talking about it. And part of the workshop was everybody in the group, I think there were 15, 20 people, all had an opportunity to listen to one of my programs. And it was a self-esteem program, obviously. Everybody knows what that's all about, you want to feel better about yourself. So the messages were all constructed around that theme. So at the end of listening, everybody took their headphones off, and Michael asked people to comment on what their experience was like and what they thought about what just happened. So people one by one said some stuff. A lot of people talked about how relaxed they were and all the things that you'd want to hear about something that you wanted to get people into that state. And then Michael said, is there anybody else who wants to say something? And then there was a woman in the back who then stood up and said, that was the most relaxed I ever felt at any moment in my life. Wow. No, but that wasn't the good part. The good part was she said, oh my God, this is the first time I've ever spoken in a group like this. At which point I almost fell down. Like here
that gave me goosebumps.
That one of the messages in the program was speak up. And that's exactly what she heard and processed without having any conscious awareness of it. And this is a habit that she had of not speaking in groups and avoiding it for her entire life. She heard this one time, and boom, she stood up and said, "Oh my!" And that I said to myself, "Okay," because this was early on when I was doing this stuff. I said, "Okay, Lloyd, I think we're onto something here."
Yeah, that's super, super cool. So, are there like subliminal messages within the stories, like woven in? Is that what you're gonna?
Great question.
Okay.
Not subliminal, because subliminal means below the threshold of conscious awareness.
Okay.
So the concept that made the most sense was peripheral processing. You're hearing different stories, and what I do is I tend to cross things over so that messages are marked out, so that at any moment in time you will hear a very short, direct message without both stories going on simultaneously. So I structure them into the stories. Well, obviously, people are listening. Oh, wow, this is like brain control here. Every suggestion is positive. Every suggestion is general, so that you have a choice as to how you want to process this information, these ideas, these suggestions. Simultaneously, you're getting really relaxed, because we had people measure listeners using EEG machines.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They went into that state, they stayed there. So we had scientific evidence to prove that they were in the hypnagogic state. But if you're really tired and you listen to one of my programs, you're going to go to sleep. You're going to actually fall asleep, because your brain's going to say, yeah, these are really interesting, but we really need you to go to sleep right now. But people who are not really fatigued, they listen to these, they go into a different place. And by the way, you get really relaxed. So you get the combination of the learning part of it, the suggestions for positive changes, the way you think, feel, and act. But you also get into for people like myself who flunked meditation 101, I wasn't very good at that. So I stopped doing it. This is for people, if they want to use it as a stress management tool as well, it'll get you relaxed in a way that's productive. They're about 25 minutes long, these programs.
It's like a perfect length of time. And isn't it so important, like, to just even take 15, 20, 25 minutes to just like bring your parasympathetic nervous system, like come down into that and just let go of the stress of it.
I couldn't agree with you more. The world is so full of information, but simultaneously full of distractions, that people just don't appreciate the simple things that are essential to managing your life well, right? You would think, I grew up in the 50s and the 60s, right? When we didn't have very much information. Nutrition meant you had enough to eat. Sleep was something you did so you didn't have to take a nap in the middle of the afternoon, and exercise was something you did in gym. There was no model of reality that we're all used to now. But now, you would think, given all of the information we have and how it's connected to healthy living, that people would gravitate to all these things and do what's necessary. Has that happened? Nope. The complete opposite has happened. You would think it would be automatic, right? We went from knowing nothing to knowing everything. So that alone would say, okay, people are going to be healthier because all this information is available. Hasn't happened. The culture has gotten sicker and sicker.
Why do you think that is?
It's about 3 inches tall, and it's about 2.5 inches wide, and you put headphones attached to it, and then you go into the automatic, I am losing regular consciousness and going into trance-like.
There, like you said, there's so much information out there about nutrition and exercise and all this, but like, why aren't people implementing it?
Because everything has, number one, people sleep less now, right? Because they're up late at night. think your average teenager, right? What they, by the way, do you know what time most public high schools have their kids show up for school?
Like 8 a.m., right?
Yeah, 8 a.m. Now you think about that, right?
It's early.
When your average teenager needs, because they're growth spurting at that time, they need minimum of 8.5 hours, but more closer to 9 to 10. So what are they typically doing at night? Are they going to sleep early to ensure the rest and relaxation that they need is taking place? No.
They're on their devices, yeah.
They're and this is, I mean in this literal sense, they're hypnotized by social media. Kids are completely addicted and hypnotized by the screens. Hence, they go to bed late, they get up early. What happens? Well, energy levels drop, making it much less likely they're going to be moving around in any kind of useful way in terms of movement, right? In terms of exercise. Their brain is going to be fogged up because they can't think as clearly. And one other aspect, which is never talked about as much, but is clearly as important as anything else, and that is, if your brain is fatigued, it's going to make, what happens is your appetite goes up because your brain needs more energy to have you alert for the extra hours that you're going to be awake when you should be asleep.
Totally.
So everything that can go wrong will go wrong. So you have all of these kids right now in a petri dish for serious disease beginning to take place at that early stage. By the time these kids get into their 30s, they're going to be suffering from cardiovascular problems and a bunch of other things. That's a given. So you would think that people would be aware of this. Nah, they peripherally know it, but is anybody taking the helm and saying it's time for the country to focus on these issues in ways that make some functional change to make sure that, but that's not happening.
Well, RFK is talking about it.
He's talking about lengthening the amount.
No, he's not talking about that. He's talking about chronic disease. But for the first time ever, I'm like, okay, at least someone is starting to talk about some of this, like diet and lifestyle. But yeah, I know.
This is it. This is what life begins. Look, when we were born, we did 3 things. We ate, we slept, we moved. Right?
Yep.
Our thoughts were our sensations were our thoughts at that time. We didn't have cognition. We didn't have abstract thinking. We only had sensation. So sensation was cognition as an infant. And we didn't make any mistakes, right? When we were hungry, we cried, we got fed. When we wanted to sleep, we just closed our eyes and went to sleep. And we moved around when we needed to move. And you can watch little kids and little infants, they're moving. Those 3 things were our core behaviors and continue to be the most important things we do. But from the beginning, from that moment in time, kids grow up in families where they get hypnotized into dysfunctional behavior. Families are hypnotic processes. We watch, and we watch what mom and dad do, and we listen to what mom and dad tell us. And after a while, well, we know what happens. Our model of reality becomes this model that's dysfunctional, but we don't remember exactly how it happened because it was happening all the time.
Right.
I grew up in that. I remember my mom loved to see me eat. She was an old-time mom. She would ask me when I came home from school every day, "Hi, what would you like for a snack?" Meanwhile, this was 3:30. And I said, "I don't know, what do you have?" She said, how about a bologna sandwich? Okay. I ate dinner 3 hours later after the bologna sandwich. And my mom was very happy. Why? I was eating.
Right.
I got hypnotized into that. So I know both ends of the continuum from not doing anything correctly to doing things correctly because I lived both of them. Hence my involvement with this.
So Okay, so like thinking about like what if you were in charge in the United States, what would you change? Like what would be like the first couple things that you would change? Like
Go right,
thinking about
go,
this
go,
lifestyle.
go right to the elementary school systems
Okay.
and build the structure of those three variables into everything those kids learn about. If you want to read stories, have literature illustrate that people exercise during part of their life. People always get their sleep every night. People eat healthy food. Have those themes built into the educational courses there, so kids are used to talking about and reading about those things. Have consultations between the parents and the school system so that all of this can be set up so that there's communication between what's going on at home, what's going on at school, in terms of the management of the kid's lifestyle to make sure all of these bases are covered early on, right? All that information in high school. Yeah, when you teach biology, make sure important stuff like healthy eating, nutrition, teach the information while you're teaching the course. You need to do it early on, has to be woven into the fabric of the school system, and you have to have the families involved. You can't just have a seminar here and a seminar there. No, it has to be from the ground up. And I don't know anybody doing it right now.
Yeah, totally. I mean, and then on top of that, I would hope that we would pair it with more movement during the day and better lunch at school, like better food options. I mean, I don't even know, like, I just told you I have a toddler. I'm like, I think about this sometimes. I'm like, what am I going to feed him for lunch at school? Like, I'm not going to let him eat that crap, right? Like, and I don't want to send him with a sandwich, right? So
people don't, I read something that was so interesting in the way the information was constructed. And this goes back a couple of years. I was reading about the effect that poor food has on your health. But this was a very unique piece of scientific research. It took junk food bit by bit, and it was able to use all kinds of computer techniques and all of that kind of stuff to figure out when you ate certain food, how much damage did it do to the longevity of your life. And the first piece of information I came across was every time you eat a hot dog, 35 seconds are lost from your life. Now, that had profound impact on me because I grew up living on hot dogs. And I'm thinking, how much time did I lose killing myself eating that crap, right? I don't do anything like that remotely anymore. But the idea of that, I mean, we're talking about thousands of times I ate that meal when I was growing up. Nobody knew. Nobody knew about junk food and garbage and crap. That right now is part of the culture, but still doesn't change anything.
That's such a powerful, impactful like way to look at it. And I'm like thinking of your vision of educating kids, like saying stuff like that, I feel like would have a profound impact.
Yeah.
They're like, I don't want to take time off my life. You know?
Are our kids important enough to focus? I mean, come on, if you want to do this right. This is a 10-year idea. This would take 10 years to get this thing implemented in a way that there would be structure and functioning, right? But if not now, when?
Yeah.
We know you know this. I mean, you're in this business. You know how disastrous our culture is right now on so many different levels. But this is the foundational level. This is the beginning, and we need help.
Yeah, it feels like we are behind. I don't know if you've seen, I'm just thinking about like movement too. Like, have you seen those videos, they're viral on TikTok, of like kindergartners in China where they're like, oh, look them up after this. They're like, they're cooking all the homemade food. They're like doing all these crazy like aerobic exercises that are all like they're so far advanced and they're like 5 years old.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
I mean, that's
how their education is.
That's where you have your intellectual resources and sense of self have just begun. Boy, is this across the entire country? They're doing this kind of stuff.
I think so. Yeah.
Oh my! I had no idea. Wow.
Yeah, we're
Talk about
so
being
far
ahead of
behind.
us. Oh my.
Look them up or I'll email you some, or I'll put some in the show notes too for people.
Oh,
But
absolutely.
it's very impressive, and it made me be like, why is there nothing like that here? Like, I want to send my kid to a school that's like prioritizing those kind of things. Do you think that school is just kind of conditioning to become a good worker?
Well, I mean, if the school is set up correctly and you have certain responsibilities and you understand them and you're enjoying what's going on, that model of reality for that environment clearly is going to be instrumental in how you go forward. School is, I mean, you need schools, you got to have schools, so you want to do it right. So kids are taught the right kind of stuff, and kids are get an opportunity to feel good about themselves, in addition to learning the other stuff, which is critically important, how to take care of yourself. And you were talking about gym and what you can do and stuff. I mean, all of those things have to be woven into the fabric of early childhood education, then through high school. So by the time you get out, you've got a functional model of reality about how to live your life. And how good would that be?
It's so sad and frustrating that it's not like that.
Yeah. And dangerous. Because think about what it's going to be like for all of these younger people having all of these diseases earlier, the cost and the overload in the medical profession, right? Think about all of these younger people coming down with serious chronic diseases.
It's already happening. Like cancer in young people has skyrocketed.
Yeah, and that's a consequence of lifestyle.
Yeah.
Nothing else.
Absolutely.
So shows like you are really important.
It's lifestyles, all the things you mentioned, and I think also stress too, right?
Well, yeah. I mean,
and mindset.
Stress is something that's part of life, but you want people to know how to cope with them. And managing your lifestyle well gives you access to the best of what you have.
Totally.
That doesn't mean things will be easy. Stress is stress, but you want to have all your resources available so you can cope with it as functionally as you can. And that's what my stuff is focused on. Your show is focused on that. This is what life should be all about right now, is getting these things in place for younger and younger people. And parents have a big job right now, because if you want to, what kind of gift should a parent give their child? Putting aside loving your child, we all know that one. The best gift a parent could give their child, is be a role model for how you should take care of yourself. Because if you watch what your parents, because you watch what your parents do. I watched the way my parents lived, and it was completely not functional in terms of health, right? And my father he failed bypass surgery. His heart was in such a bad place. So that's the one thing I learned, is what not to do. But if you model exercise, healthy eating, and sleep, your kids are going to do that, because that's what we do in my family. That's really important. More and more younger parents should realize that's the gift they want to give their child, because that means your kids are going to grow up learning how to be healthy.
Absolutely. And it's like, if you feed them healthy stuff now, they're not gonna, well, like my kid eats my kid eats like everything we eat, but it's a lot of like healthy meat, a lot of vegetables, some fruit, and he's so happy. And healthy fats. He doesn't want carbs, he doesn't want sugar. Like,
you're doing a good job. So people watching your show are going to be impacted by what you tell them about what you do, independent of you trying to change them in the moment. Say, this is what I do, and it's working very well.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a very subtle hypnotic suggestion for, hey, you should do the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Okay. You're doing good with this.
Yeah, totally. Okay, so this is like kids. So what do we do about like all these adults out there who aren't making the right choices?
I mean, we're limited in what we can do, because there's been so much information given that a lot of people are just tuning out. They don't want to hear any of that stuff anymore. They just don't. So what can you do? Except if you're talking to somebody one-on-one, you can begin to maybe influence them by talking in a way that allows them to listen without feeling guilty, right? Because I work with this all the time, trying to introduce stuff with people, because in addition to doing therapy, I do lifestyle management. I weave everything together because it's really important. But you have to be cautious, because you don't want to push somebody away by saying, hey, you're being a jerk, it's time to change. That's not going to work. So,
I haven't heard of many therapists who are focusing on diet and nutrition and movement. And that's pretty awesome, because you're right. It's like when you do those things, you're in a better state of mind and you're more able to cope with what life throws at you.
Life ain't easy. So you've got to have as many of your resources available as possible. That means you have to take care of yourself. That doesn't mean being perfect. Every so often, everybody does something. I didn't exercise very much this week. That's fine. Get back on the horse. Start exercising again. Make sure because it's what you do most of the time in life that matters. All the time is impossible. Most of the time you can do. So if you're working out 3 times a week right now, that's all the time you have. That's fine. That'll keep you fit. But you can eat less food and higher quality food. That you can do, right? All the time, right?
You know what I've found is that when you do those things, you feel so damn good. And when you go back to not exercising, or you binge out on a bunch of like gross carbs or whatever junk food, like you feel awful. And it makes you want to keep doing it. Yeah.
I had an aha moment based on exactly what you said, which goes back a long time ago when I was starting to shift what I ate. I used to drink a lot of soda, traditional soda with sugar. I love Haagen-Dazs ice cream, all that kind of stuff. And I finally had the epiphany, began to change, and all of that was removed. And then I remember one time I consumed too much sugar. It was the first time in a long time. And I realized how there was a subtle, not good feeling associated with that. And I said, oh my, all those years I never noticed that feeling until I was away from it for a long period of time. Then I ate too much sugar, felt it, and I said, oh my, I was blind, deaf, and dumb during so many years, and realized that stuff I actually didn't feel well. But it was
It's like a drug, right?
It was it was so subtle. But it stood out because I hadn't had that feeling in a long time. And I said, wow. And all that time I was a dope. Okay, but I'm not a dope now. And that's why I'm going to stay in the state of never again.
Yeah, you're making me think too, the other thing that I think is a really good motivator is like when you find an exercise that you really love, when you don't eat well or you drink one night or whatever, you feel it in your workout the next day. And it's like, it's just like, damn it, it makes you want to stay
Every so
on the path.
often, it's actually useful because it reminds you
Yeah.
of why you wanted to stay away, and it made it that much more, gave you much more impetus to get back and do your stuff. So every so often, it actually has that teeny little bit of value, but obviously, stay away from it, and most of the time is obvious.
Yeah. But like I think people don't listen to all the advice because they're like, well, I just want to like go have fun, or I want to like live my life, and they just don't know how much better they could feel because they haven't tried it.
I'll start tomorrow. I'll get to it. I know it's important, but yeah, most people are in that place where, especially if you're not satisfied with other things in your life, you're always looking for things to make you feel good. I mean, alcohol is the obvious choice for most people, or really stupid drugs. But you've got to get to a point where you say to yourself, my life is this important, and it's time. It's time.
Yeah, you're right. Have you seen that a lot with your patients? It's like as their self-worth starts to increase, they start taking better care of themselves.
Absolutely. No question, because then they owe it to themselves. Hey, if I'm going to do this, I obviously have to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hopefully there'll be enough folks like yourself doing podcasts and talking about this and having enough of a population listening so you can make an impact. And that's a good feeling.
Yeah, I feel very passionate about it now that I have a kid and I have another kid on the way. And
okay.
I just like, it's like you want the country to do better. Like, come on, everyone.
It's
for
time.
Kids.
If not now, when. It's one thing to accidentally hit the iceberg. It's quite another to steer the ship directly into it. And that's what's been happening. Everything.
I know you kind of laughed when I said RFK, but I'm really hoping it's like the first politician that's even talked about trying to figure out root cause of chronic illness. And it's like bringing in all these functional medicine doctors. So I'm like, come on, like this is our chance.
Well, if not now, when?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so I want to go back to your really cool
the audio material
app. Yeah. Because we were talking about the magic that can happen, but we never like went into the magic that happens. So when people are in the hypnotic state with the storytelling, talk to me about like what results you've seen and how it's been helping people.
Well, it does. There are two primary variables that I focus on. One is whatever the content of this particular program is, which can be anything from time management to self-esteem to weight management and anything like that. But there's also the overall stress management component, and they tend to go together because you get people managing their stress better, and you really do get relaxed in these things, and you don't have to do anything, and that's the nice part. It removes you from the world for 28 minutes, and when you come back, you're different. And the whole idea is to do this enough so that the stress management part, the part of you that knows how important it is to manage your life so that you do all the right things, that gets built up. So you now and you have a technique where you don't have to do anything or learn anything because it does it for you. It taps into the skill set that your brain has. It tunes everything that should be off and turns the other part on. And suddenly you're in a place where you can process information, and that information can translate into the kind of behavioral changes and emotional changes that are important in your life. So the combination of stress management and change.
And reprogramming.
Separate but overlapping kinds of things. And people who tend to use it tend to continue using it because there's something about it that it's, and by the way, I have a bunch of programs where people say, well, don't you get kind of bored with it? Well, each program actually is two programs because since there are let me tell how the structure is. Each program begins with a story that you listen to. You hear the beginning of the myth of the hero, kind of person with a problem goes out into the world, meets a magical character. Okay, that lasts for maybe 5 minutes. Then that story pauses, and then two completely different stories start up, one in each year. So that's when the messages are structured into the fabric of what you're listening to. Those stories play for 15 to 17 minutes, then they stop, and then you go back to the lead story where me, who's telling you these stories, does a wrap up where the individual in the storyline is told that they've learned new thoughts, new feelings, new sensations, and new behaviors. So, but because you've got the stories in each ear, different stories, you can then, the next time you listen, turn your headphones around so the stories are in different ears. And when that happens, even though they are identical stories, it sounds like a completely different program. And your brain processes all of the messages differently because each of the piece of the message is coming from a different location. So a different hemisphere is being stimulated. So it's got all these little gimmicky, interesting kinds of things attached to them. And the one thing I can absolutely guarantee is you won't have heard anything like this before. That I can guarantee. You might not like them, but you will notice there's something different about these.
Yeah, I want to try them. But just to like give you my take on the like, do you ever get sick of them? Like I've worked with hypnotists for like over a decade now, and the one that I went to a lot would record a session with me in her office, and then she would just give me the digital file, and I would listen to it for like months and months and months and months. Like, you don't get sick of it. You look forward to it. You love it.
Anything that makes you feel really good,
yeah,
you'll have a tendency to listen to.
Yeah.
And if you have a bunch of different, but by the way, the app that I have is structured so that all of the HPP programs that we are now talking about are available, in addition to me talking like I'm talking to you about the importance of all of these eating, sleeping, moving issues, which are done in 3-minute bits, one a day. So everything is combined together so that all aspects of your brain functioning and mind functioning are stimulated. It's a nice way of putting things together.
Yeah, sounds like a really useful app. You know what else too, I bet is just really good for people to just like unplug for 28 minutes and like turn the phone off.
There's no question about that. Yeah. And especially when you don't have to do anything. Like, you don't have to, nobody's telling you to breathe, and nobody's telling you to do this. No, just put the headphones on, zone out, and believe me, you're going to zone out.
Is it true that like even if you do fall asleep to it, your subconscious still kind of like gets the messaging?
That's a interesting and difficult question to answer. My guess is probably not the way we would like it to be, because once you go to sleep, your brain is really functioning to pay attention to itself, because there's so many different things that have to happen. Hence, it's not as interested in what's going on outside as it is focusing on things like cleaning itself and all the other storing the memories from the day and stuff like that. Yeah, so my guess is probably not, but the in-between state, that's magical space.
Yeah.
That's magical space, yeah.
So you focus mostly on creating change.
Uh-huh.
Do you ever have patients that have so much trauma, or they've like have so many like emotions they've like pushed down that it's hard for them to like even have those kind of breakthroughs?
Absolutely. At which point, obviously, there's things that have to be done first, and that is, how can we help them? You don't get cured from trauma, but you learn to cope with what those memories are so that your life can continue in a meaningful way. And there are ways to take some of the sting out of it so that those healing processes can take place. Nothing disappears completely, because that would mean you would have had amnesia for what went on, and that doesn't happen. But there are obviously different ways to help with trauma. That's what you would want. This would be a sidebar to that being the primary thing, obviously.
Well, I think I would hope all people want to make meaningful change in their life, right? Like, as humans, we are designed to grow and expand and change. And
most people don't know what they're capable of. Having been through periods of time in my life early on where the confidence was not at the top of the list for my self-perception, I can tell you, I know that firsthand what that feels like. So, and one thing I know is we're all more alike than we are different. So everybody has a little bit of that, but when you help them understand what they're capable of and suddenly identify with it, that's the magical moment in therapy. When like, oh, I never thought I could do that. Well, you can.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's really cool. This has been awesome. Is there anything that we haven't talked about today that you like really wanted to get out to people?
Nope. I just wanted to essentially provide all that I'm about and all that the work that I do is about. And, hopefully if people are interested, the Lifestyle Intelligence LQ material is available, and you can use it for free for a couple of weeks. And if you find it useful, then you can purchase it. But if not, there's no cost. And this way people have an opportunity to test the waters.
That's really, really cool. Why don't you take a moment then and just let people know where they can find it and how they can connect with you?
It's on the Apple Store, and the app is called Lifestyle Intelligence LQ, and that it should pop up. Or you can go lifestyleintelligencelq.com, which would be my website, and then that could lead you to the Apple Store. Either way, works.
Amazing. Thank you for the work you're doing in the world. I think it's very needed.
Thank you for having me. It's been delightful.
Yeah. Really cool conversation. And then if you're listening and you know someone this would resonate with, please send it to them. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Let's help make the world a healthier and more conscious place. All right. See you all next week.